Hi guys, my name is Girish, your host for Back to Basics, another Back to Basics on a Friday. Hope you are enjoying all the episodes so far, because I know I am for sure. So today we have a guest, okay? Maybe you've never heard of this. You've heard of CEO, COO, CIO, CTO. Those are all the chiefs of all the technology or financial or anything like that. But today we have a CAH. What is that? We will talk to a corporate action hero. That's a weird algorithm, right? But it is quite fun. And I'm telling you, he's a motivational speaker. He's an action hero. Well, he's the action director. And then on top of that, he's a comedian, a goofball. At the same time, he makes everyone laugh. And that's what we want in this Back to Basics. So, John Davis, thank you for coming on my show. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I am a goofball. And that's how I live my life, because life should be goofy.
Yeah, it should be. It should be because you should not be stressed out with the things going on in the world and any even before pandemic and all that. Life is too serious for that. We need to enjoy our lives.
Absolutely. And you only live one present moment, so you might as well make it fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. John, thank you again for coming on my show and making it bright and vibrant of this show. Thank you again.
Oh,
So
I'm so glad to be here. It's going to
yeah,
be
so
a good time.
thank you. So before we start and get to the basics of the CAH talk, what is back to basic moment for you, and what does it mean to you?
Well, see, back to basics to me really means, all of the intricacies of our life are mired in lots of past thoughts and all the things. But back to basics to me means coming down to the core elements of creating singular, present, positive moments.
Yes.
And if you can get down to that space, then everything else seems superfluous. Everything else, it falls away,
Mm.
and you create a much simpler and much happier and much joyful life.
Yeah, absolutely. Just make it as simple as possible, no matter what the
Yes,
topic and no matter what you're doing in life. Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So you have all these five, six different titles under you. Before we get into the CAH, you're an actual director, you're a comedian, you are, I think, kind of an author also at the same time, but you're a motivational speaker also. Where do
Yeah,
you
and
get time to Where do you get time to breathe, John?
well, it was a logical progression for me. I actually started out as a stuntman
Okay.
and a fight director and a
Okay.
fight choreographer, and then as time went on, I put together my comedy sword fighting show, which was part of my process.
Mm-hmm.
And I did over 4,000 live performances of a comedy sword fighting stunt show
Mm-hmm.
called Hack and Slash.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a certain amount of time, I started realizing, because of a specific event that happened to me early in life, I learned how to leverage my present moment and how to work with mental flexibility to achieve more really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I ended up doing was going on to not only do those shows, but I was helping people after the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really enjoying that process more than actually being on stage.
Mm-hmm.
But there was things about being on stage that I really liked, like in my speeches, I use bullwhips and nunchucks and all kinds of crazy fun things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to be able to do that. I wanted to still be able to tell some jokes while I was on stage, but I really wanted to, end my day feeling like I left somebody better than I found them. And
Mm-hmm.
so I created the corporate action hero.
Nice, nice. Okay, so now the corporate action hero question. Why this name and why not action hero? Why not hero? Why not anything else? Why this name?
Well, it's very specific. The word action means to create motion, start momentum, or to do something.
Mm,
And the word hero is someone who achieves an extraordinary result in service of others.
mm,
So for me, that was very important. The action heroes. Now, in my life, I was helping everybody on very personal levels, but I really wanted to reach out to people who were, in very stressful situations. And in our world today, some of the most stressed out people I know are in the corporate environment.
yeah.
So I started becoming a workshop and keynote speaker for corporate events so that I could go in there and really help them awaken their interaction heroes and achieve more in half the time.
But John, I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but honestly, when people they think of action hero, they think of, a big suit and costumes and whatever. Technically, if you really think about it, the real people behind the costume are the actual heroes because they pivot a different move
Right.
towards the people's feelings and action, right? And is that what your thought process was when you started
Well,
this?
well, first of all, let me just kind of clear something up. The people who wear the costumes and stuff are superheroes,
Yeah,
not action heroes.
right,
And the real difference between the two is a action hero is an ordinary individual who is creating super results,
hmm,
and a superhero is somebody who wears their underwear on the outside of their pants, was irradiated by some sort of goo, and has superpowers, right?
right, right,
Something that none of us probably are, hopefully,
right,
right?
right.
And so it really comes down to anybody can be an action hero,
Hmm.
and anybody can step into that power. And it really comes down to, are you going to do that? Are you going to take your moment and create something better in service of others?
So before we get to the other basics, but John, what if you wanted to be an action hero or a superhero? What powers would you want?
I would like to. That's a great question. There's all kinds of superpowers, but for me, it's all about empathy. So if I would want to have um, super empathy, so I would know what they're feeling, so that I could actually serve better.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great, John. I think and empathy would actually work around the world a lot better for all the humanity actually that we have here. Am I right or wrong in that?
Oh, absolutely. I traveled through Egypt in the year 2000,
Yes.
and as I traveled, I walked around the country, and I had such a great time, and I was treated so well everywhere
Yes.
I went.
Hmm.
But I was bringing that first,
Hmm.
and I was, delivering that positive. I really love your country. I love your. Thank you so much. I was so pleased to meet people, and I was treated really well.
Hmm.
And when I was treated so well that I went to Mount Sinai and climbed Mount Sinai. When you start climbing at 1 o'clock in the morning, and at 2:30 in the morning, I heard my name being called
Hmm.
in the darkness on the side of Mount Sinai. And this guy comes running up to me. It was the manager of the hotel that I had made friends with earlier in the day.
Hmm.
He ran an hour and a half up the mountain
Hmm.
to give me his coat because he thought I was going to be cold.
Hmm.
And then the next day, I ran into another American, and he was out there, and he says, "Hey, are you American?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Have you been having problems since you've been here?" I said, "No, everyone's treating me fantastic." He says, "Everywhere I go, everybody wants to fight me." And 5 minutes later, I wanted to fight the guy. It was crazy
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's what he was putting out,
Yeah.
yeah, by delivering the goods and looking at everybody on earth as an equal and as a human. I've been to 30 countries around the globe. I've been on the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan.
Hmm.
I have talked with amazing people, and I have found people who I could be friends with everywhere I went.
Hmm.
But I know a lot of other people who haven't had the same experience, and it's because um, I was friends with them first.
Hmm. Well, I mean, you and I think we've talked several times before the show, obviously, and it seems like we clicked, and now we're friends.
Right, there you go.
And there you go. So I mean, it doesn't take much to become a friend, and it has to be on the same wavelength in order to click. I guess. I mean,
Right, oh,
that's the right word.
absolutely, and no judgment.
And no
No,
judgment
no,
at all.
no
No,
judgment.
definitely.
Yeah.
No, no. So John, so let me ask you a question regarding about fear. Okay,
Mhm.
there are a few points that I have, and explain to me what does fear mean to you. Okay, so protection, motivation, theory. Okay, um, they got power motivation. They got different type of motivations. I have like three, four of them. But what does fear mean to you?
Well, it's a great question because I actually have a real a real solid answer for you.
Okay.
Because part of my process that I created in my life was called the 5 F's, and the first one is called fearlessness.
Hmm.
And um, when I look at fear, I look at it from a very scientific standpoint, because fear, when you break it down, is an emotional reaction to some future event that may or may not happen with you negatively focused on the outcome. And so it basically comes down to fear equals negatively focused on certainty. And so since that is the mental state and the emotional state of fear, then it's not rooted in your present moment, and you have the opportunity to release it and get positively focused.
So what are the 5 fears for you?
The 5 fears or the 5 Fs?
5 Fs.
5 Fs. Okay. The first one is fearlessness, and it's all about setting your fears aside. And most of the way you set your fears aside is by negating the primal response that we all have. The first thing we do when we get into a fear is our bodies gasp and hold in air. And the reason it's, people feel like they can't breathe when they're afraid. And it's not that they can't breathe, it's that their body is conserving air so they can run further and faster and survive. And actors on Broadway are trained to exhale and relax all their muscles if they forget their lines. And the reason that it works, all their lines come running right back to their head. The reason that works is because they shut off the primal fear response. And so literally you get into a fear response, first label it as a fear so you can compartmentalize it. Then literally exhale, relax all the muscles of your body. And the fear response shuts off and the cognitive abilities kick back on. The second of the 5 Fs is focus. Now, when you're in a fear response, having something to focus on gets you out of it even easier because you don't have to focus on the negative aspect. You focus on the thing you're trying to accomplish. When I was on the front lines of Iraq, I was talking to soldiers. I said, how can you go into these situations knowing you might get shot at? He said, well, sometimes it's easy because we have an objective, a goal, something to focus on. And I can tell you from experience, when you're standing on top of a 3-story tower about to jump off for a movie, you're not focused on the tower. You're focused on where you're going to land.
Where you're going to land. Right? Exactly.
You're looking at the pad, right?
Exactly.
So you got fearlessly and you got focus, right? You can positively focus, you can negatively focus. People who are negatively focused will always see negative things and will always have something negative to say. People who are positively focused will be exactly the opposite. So you want to stay in the positive framing. So fearlessly focus. The middle one's the hard one, and it's faith, confidence, belief in yourself, believe you can. We all have this subconscious belief behind us that tells us from our experiences, or sometimes even from people who told us we were not worthy or whatever, that we can't achieve certain things. We have to set those things down and believe that we can, put the faith in the outcome. So you got fearlessly focus and faith. And then the next one is even harder than that one. I lied about that last one being the hardest. This is actually harder, and it's follow through. You actually have to do something. And the interesting thing is, I said earlier that we only live in our conscious moment, right? Our subconscious mind behind us is just a collection of present moment memories that are stored. And our future is just a place where we set goals for our next present moment. And so you can only do any thought, word, and deed right here in the present moment. You can't do it in the past. You can't do it in the future. So making your small successful moments really successful and positive stacks them in your subconscious mind behind you, and it changes that belief. So literally draw your timeline into the present and make this really a good present, right? Because I know a lot of people who sit in this moment and look at their giant goal that they're trying to achieve, and they think they have to struggle to get to it. But that's not the way the world works. That's not the way the brain works either. That thing that that you have a goal set is going to be experienced in your present moment. And because of that, that means you don't have to get to it. It's coming to you, depending on your present moment thoughts, words, and deeds. And so we got fearlessly, focus with faith, and follow through. And then the last of those 5 Fs is flexibility. Something's always going to come up that's going to seem contrary to what you're trying to achieve. And if it does come up, you have the choice of saying, well, I'm done, I'm stopped. Or you have the choice of saying, well, this is something that I need to address to get my goal, right? Your subconscious mind will show you things you focus on. We kind of said that already. So, and I'll give you an example. Say if you were somebody who liked a certain kind of car, and you had that choice, and you were going to buy one of those cars. Usually what happens is that person will start seeing that kind of car everywhere before he buys it, right? It's because his conscious choice was made, his subconscious mind kicks in to show it to him. So if you can get to that point where you are just consciously focused on the goal and then something comes up, that's your subconscious mind is showing it to you so you can clear it out of the way so you can get to that
But
outcome.
but
But the
John,
goal, the thing
no,
is
go
stay with
ahead.
the outcome.
No, go ahead, please.
No, the thing is you have to just stay with your goal.
Yeah, yeah. But John, these five F's that you have here, um, they're not only for business; it's also for personal life, also at the same time. Correct?
Absolutely. Now check this out. They're based on hacking the fight or flight response. So
Okay.
if you're a salesperson,
Mm-hmm.
it is the same response that your customer is going through.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can understand where they are in the process and help them through, you're going to see a big change. You're going to see a lot of sales,
That's right.
right? It's all, if you're a leader and you've got team members, it's the same process they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'll give you an example of how I use this in a leadership program.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, how I lead somebody through something very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do my main corporate action hero speech, I I bring the most timid person I can find in the room up on stage.
Mm.
And I bring them up on stage, and now I know that person has a big fear the second they step on stage.
Sure.
My job as a leader is to meet them where they are,
Mm.
not where I want them to be.
Yeah.
Because I'm a leader, not a dragger. I'm not dragging them, I'm leading
Leading
them,
them.
right? So have to meet them where they are. So I know she's afraid of being in front of her peers. So I walk her on stage. The first thing I do is I give her positive reinforcement because I am a stranger. So I have to make her feel comfortable with me first. So I say, "Oh, thank you so much for coming." I give her positive reinforcement. And then I turn to the audience and I say, "Isn't she a rock star?"
Yeah.
And the audience cheers for her,
Sure.
gives her all this positive reinforcement, right?
Right.
That negates that first fear. Then I start talking to her about fishing, and specifically fishing for a very specific reason. I say, "Have you ever been fishing?" And yes or no, it doesn't really matter. I said, "Today, I'm going to teach you the best way to cast a fishing rod."
Mm.
And she's, "Oh, okay." Now she's in a mindset of fishing, nice and easy, sitting in a pond somewhere fishing, right?
Mm.
And then I hand her a bullwhip,
Mm.
right? Now she's got this whip in her head.
Yeah.
Her whole fear response gets ignited again.
Sure.
The fear response now is, "Oh my God, it's going to hurt." Pain, danger, and sometimes other things they think when you pull out a whip. And the idea was that I need to take her out of that fear again. So I say to her, "Just fishing." And I turn to the audience on that side of the stage and I say, "Can you guys make fish faces?" And I get the whole part of the audience making fish faces. And she's laughing as they're making these fish faces. So I have her in a state of positivity the entire time. Then I say, "All I want you to do now is choose which fish you want to catch and cast your fishing rod." And she does, and the whip cracks because it's the same exact motion, right?
Mm-hmm.
The next thing I do is I say, "Did you hear it crack?" So I'm giving positive reinforcement. She says, "Yeah, yeah." I said, "So you already know how to make it crack." So now I'm shifting her mindset from learning the skill to knowledge of the skill. You already know how to make it crack. And I say that multiple times.
Yeah.
Then I pull out a target and I hold it in my hand and I say, and I look at her, and of course, the first thing, now she's afraid she's going to hurt me because I'm holding a target and she's holding a whip.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at her and I say, "Look at me. I promise you're not going to hurt me." I basically negate the fear again.
Mm-hmm.
And then I make a joke and stuff.
So,
All I want you to do is look right here and cast your fishing rod.
but
And
John,
she looks right.
it sounds like that the answer is out of these five F's here is more of a mindset. So
It's all mindset.
so if I actually want to bring this together, it would be five F's equal to M, which is your mindset,
Yeah, that's a good mathematic equation. Absolutely.
right?
Your mindset, it's all about managing the fear, leveraging your present moment, staying completely flexible. But it's all about the mind. What I call it the action hero mindset.
Yeah.
It's about I'm here and I am in control of my experience. But when you're leading, sometimes you have to lead that experience too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
That's true.
in the situation with her, she ends up cracking that whip and taking the target right out of my hand without hurting me. And she does it all in under 5 minutes,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And now she's just had a life-changing experience because she's a timid person who's now just done this in front of thousands of people.
Yeah, yeah.
And the audience who know her know that she's a timid person. So they've had oh my God, I can't believe she did it. So it's all about changing their mindset, and changing the mindset of what they can achieve.
So let me tell the listeners and the viewers here. So there are 5 F's that John has just explained. Okay, now if I'm not mistaken, he has talked about fearless. He's talked about focus. He's talked about faith. He's talked about follow through. He's talked about flexibility. And if you really think about it, all the examples that he's given, that really comes down to your mindset. I can tell you that you are a rock star of making this speech, or Girish, you are a rock star on this podcast. It makes you feel that you are great, you are a superstar for that particular moment. And that's what John is trying to do with this examples. I mean, you tell a lady that you know fishing, but you actually don't, or you know how to throw stuff, but you actually don't. It's all about mindset. Am I right, John, on that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, what's interesting is when I said to her, so you already know how to crack a whip. At that point, she had just cracked it, so technically, she does know how to.
Sure.
It's a matter of getting her mindset out of the way of thinking that she can or not.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it literally is changing her mind about where she is on her timeline.
So, John, thank you for that. But that's a cool insight of fear. And people they take when they talk about fear, they talk about more negativity versus positivity, and you brought that fear into positive, which is a good thing, and
Right.
that's what we want. Now, regarding achieving, okay. Now there are some few points that I have, and you tell me that if I'm right or wrong or totally off balance on that, okay? So
Okay. Okay.
let's say achieving is money is the ultimate motivator. If you are smart, you don't need to be motivated. Virtualization success will make dreams a reality. Willpower is all it takes to reach your goals. I mean, I'll give you more examples, but what do you think so far? Do you think I'm all a little off track there, or?
I think that motivation is based upon your personal purpose.
Mm,
I think that if you are motivated by money, that purpose is there. But why do you want the money?
mm,
And so, if you want the money to, I'll tell you something. I travel all over the world, and I've asked my audiences all over the world, what's the most important thing in your life?
mm-hmm.
And the same answer that I get all over the world is my family,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So if you're looking for money, you're looking for security, you're looking for security for you, for your family, you're looking for those things, right? Those raising up through business is all about, power and having power so you can have money, so you can have so the reality of it is what motivates people is what's most important to them.
Mm,
And so when you say, motivation is this or motivation is that, the answer is always going to be yes, because to some people, that is what their motivation is. But
sure.
all of their motivations, come back to what is their purpose? Why are they doing it? What is their why?
Like for example, nowadays people are getting laid off, and my answer is to those people is, yeah, you're laid off, and yes, you are struggling with financial needs that we all need to pay our bills, right? But
Yeah,
if you really look at it, John, eventually you will get the money. The only person and only people who are around you are the family.
right.
And that's how I look at it, and more of a positive note on that part.
Right,
uh,
right. And any adversity that comes up, you can take a slant on it. I'm a professional speaker, which means when COVID-19 hit,
yeah.
half the speakers went away in all the business, right?
Yes.
So I could have easily said in that moment, all right, well, this industry's over. Instead, I upped my video game. I built an extra studio in my house to do virtual events. I started doing online courses, which aren't finished yet, but they will be eventually. And I'm writing a book right now. So when COVID is done, I'm going to have live speeches, virtual speeches, online courses, and a book. And I could have easily just given up on everything and not done any of that.
But John,
Um,
when people they come up to you and when they say, "I'm just trying enough,"
mhm,
or
mhm.
then what do you say when they say that?
I said, first thing I say is, well, how does try feel? Because
Yeah.
in your present moment, if you're saying I am trying, then you're going to get a lot of good reasons to try. And, in the words of Yoda in Star Wars, he said, do or do not, there is no try.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So you want to get, you want to, one of the things I had to do, my 5Fs were born out of a traumatic injury I had
Mm,
back in my 20s.
mm,
I literally was paralyzed for almost a year and a half. And my spine had split in two. And the process of getting out of that bed was the birthing place of my 5F approach.
mm,
And it's so interesting. If I had stayed in that bed and said, I'm going to try to do this today, I still would be paralyzed. I had to get rid of anything that I would say about my present moment had to be constructive. It had to say, I am exercising. I am flexing my muscles. I am, and the doctors were trying to give me beliefs. They actually told me, you'll never be a stuntman. You'll never be a fight director. You'll never do anything physical in your life. And I couldn't take their beliefs on either. My creation, my life is my creation.
mm.
And I can't take somebody else's beliefs, or I'll just start creating what their life and what they think of me.
Yeah.
So I need to stay firmly me and take those actions.
So, John, regarding positivity, okay, um, there are like 3, 4 points that I have here. It's goals, success, and self-esteem. So, tell me, is that the right goals that I have for positivity, or is that the right points for positivity, or is there should be a different goal for that?
Well, in my opinion, positivity is a choice. You can choose to be positive, you can be negative. Now, if goals are a tool to use to get there, great. If spirituality is a tool to get there, great. If whatever tool you want to use, but the point is, you can look at your whole outlook on life is based upon your choice of being positive or negative.
Mm,
And if you can set a goal for something, but then negatively believe you'll never get it,
mm,
you know, you have to choose the positive approach to everything.
yeah.
Any aspect of your life. We that getting out of that bed and going on. I went on and did over 4,000 live comedy sword fighting stunt shows all over the world.
Mm,
After I was told I would never possibly walk again,
mm,
and it's all about the fact that I stayed positive about what I was doing.
mm,
And so whether you can marry your positivity to another item or thing or even a monetary number, but it really is a choice. You can be happy right where you are.
yeah.
And the interesting thing is, since the present moment is the only creative moment, by creating positive, happy moments,
Yeah.
you are literally creating a happy future.
Yeah. I mean, I want to tell my listeners that, it, yeah, I mean, the way John is explaining that, you can, oh, my camera went off. Oh my God. Give me a second. No, I did record, by the way. Yeah, there it is. So I want to explain to my listeners and my viewers that people who are paralyzed, people who are blind, people who are deaf, or anything like that, or any of that type of injury, or that type of handicapped, and I don't like to use handicap. I would like to use a different word. So comment and let me know what word I should be using next time when I have these type of topics and episodes. But my point is, yes, you have a problem. But at the end of the day, if you really look at it, life is so damn beautiful. You have to look
Mm,
in a positive way. You cannot look negative on that part. I mean, people who are colorblinded, it does not mean that life is not beautiful. Think of that way. People who, just like John, who went through a trauma back in his 20s, and look where he is today. He must have used those 5 F's equals to M, like what I said, which is all about
mm.
mindset, and that's what John did. So, John, go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, because if you've ever listened or read any of the quotes from Helen Keller,
Yes,
she was a very positive individual, and
absolutely.
she was. I mean, she had come through with a huge amount of trauma. This is she was blind, deaf, and dumb, right? No, and
That's
I
right.
don't like the word dumb. Mute.
Mute,
Sorry.
mute. Yes.
Um, and And yet she had a positive outlook on life, and she had a positive way of achieving things.
That's right.
Um, there's another speaker that I've seen who doesn't have any arms or legs, and he comes onto the stage and climbs up in a chair using his neck and his head to do it.
Yeah.
And
Stephen Hawking,
and
maybe.
pardon?
Stephen Hawking?
No, that Stephen Hawking was the what's the word? Physician, the physics.
Yeah.
Um, but this is actually a keynote speaker
Okay.
and talking
Okay.
about limitations. And
Okay.
but the thing, either one, Stephen Hawking is a great example too. I mean, look at all he achieved in his life,
Yeah.
and he was, that disease he had um, is debilitating on many levels, but it never shut down his brain.
That's
I
right.
once heard an interesting story about him. He said that he would come to like television stations for interviews,
Mm.
and they would put him in a closet,
Mm.
and they'd say, why, that's cruel. Why would you put him in a closet? And Stephen says, I like being in the closet because I get to shut off all the other senses so that I can be in my brain and learn more
Sure.
and ponder more. So he understood how to use what he had. And that to me is powerful. You have to be able to use what you have. There's a real opportunity that I might not have ever been able to walk again. That doctor could have been correct.
Yeah.
But even in that situation, I would have found a way to find my joy and find a way of working in the industry that I wanted to work in.
Mm.
I would have found the way.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you would, and I'm glad that you found this way. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on my show, and you wouldn't be where you are today. And I thank you for that strength, or whatever that strength grabbed you, or you grabbed it, I should say.
Yeah, I grabbed it. It was all because it all started with while I was lying in the hospital bed. Somebody handed me a book by Bruce Lee called The Tao Jeet Kune Do, and that book taught taught me the first part of my 5 Fs. It was the mental flexibility part, the part where we usually end on, but that mental flexibility and staying very present was right in that book, and that was the starting point of me developing what I now teach.
Oh, well, I'm glad, and I've been watching most of your videos, and you're very, I'm gonna say cool speaker, because you have to have guts the way you're doing stuff, and I thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And I firmly believe that if you will be your fully authentic self,
Yes,
then the world, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, it's gonna reward you.
that's right.
You know,
That's
and
right.
and people will can't love you if you are not you.
That
So
yeah.
you go out and be your fullest self and put yourself out there.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely, absolutely. So, John, so now on a little happy note, so you're a comedian. So obviously that happened in the middle of your speakings and your shows and your motivational speaker, or did that happen something else?
well, let me tell you what actually the way that progressed. I told somebody earlier today the same story. I fell into comedy in an interesting way. My goal was to do stunts and sword fighting and do be a stuntman
Yeah,
literally,
yeah.
and I ended up learning those skills at a Renaissance festival. And so to do that, I had to play a character. The next thing you know, I was playing the goofy characters. And so I was playing these I played Darian the Barbarian. I played Cyril the Chicken Hearted. I played all these crazy, funny characters. And when I finally put together my comedy sword fighting stunt show,
Hmm.
I put together a show called Hack and Slash. And it was Sir Nigel Hack and Slash Montant.
Yeah.
And Sir Nigel Hack was a knight who had been hit in the head with a cannonball and saw everything 6 inches to the left.
Mm.
And so the whole show was a real funny routine. So the comedy that I did was very skit and commedia and slapstick oriented.
Mm.
But I never went on. I never went on to do stand up because that's a different animal.
Yeah.
But I would go up there and for 90 minutes we would just entertain and have a great time. And eventually we put together a huge charity event called the Hack and Slash Christmas Special back in the day, where we raised a bunch of money for
Mm.
homeless shelters and kids in needs and Habitat for Humanity and all
But
kinds
John,
of.
you brought up a good point, and I thought maybe comedians are just comedians, right? But I guess you brought up a point saying a skit comedy versus stand up. I think they're two separate items. So can you explain that to me?
Absolutely, absolutely. So in stand up, I'm going to go on stage. I'm going to be alone on the stage,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to tell you jokes or take you through funny stories.
Yeah.
Skit comedy is based around, it's like situation comedy. So I go up there, and now I'm the knight with who's struck in the head with the cannonball, and now for the rest of the show, I'm going to be doing funny things, and the squire's going to maybe making me look good. So rather than me relying on having a series of jokes to tell, I now have really funny looking things. One of the things that we do in the one crossbow, the one show we did, the Hackensack crossbow show, was all through the whole show I was messing up and doing the wrong things.
Mm.
And the big culmination of the show, we bring an audience member on the stage. We have him standing there with an apple on his head
Mm.
and an apple between his knees.
Mm.
And I'm turned backwards with a crossbow.
Nice.
I'm about to shoot these apples. Well, what's really happening is the squire is getting the audience to count down. And as they're counting down, he runs out of the audience, grabs the arrow off the crossbow, runs over and sticks it in the apple, and runs back out in the crowd. And then I fire, I turn around, and the arrow's in the apple. And I'm like, yes, I got it. Right. And so the audience is laughing. And then the big punchline of that routine is when the second one's happening. He's doing the countdown. He runs down. He grabs the arrow. He starts to go across, and I sneeze and accidentally fire the crossbow, and turn around, and he acts like he caught it. Gah! Right? He gets a huge laugh, and
Sure.
but that's a situational thing. And here's another thing: stand-up guys, and men and women who do stand-up are the bravest people in the world because they're out there alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a partner on stage. To do a sword fighting show, you need somebody to sword fight,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I had somebody I could play off of for that time. When you're out there alone, you are bare and you are raw
Yeah.
in front of an audience, and that is a hard thing to do.
It is a hard thing to do. Actually, I was watching some TV show on I think Amazon. I think it's called Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yep.
They showed how she. I'm pretty sure there are other comedians that we can give examples, but that's the only one that comes in my mind. Uh, but the pivot that she did, she took failure and she took a little success in a obviously a slow manner, and how she wanted to be funny. She is funny, but how do you make it funny on stage? That's I think that's what she was learning. uh so yeah, stand-up comedians are a little different and tough at the same time, but hats off to all the stand-up comedians, because that those you need guts to do that.
Yeah, yeah. When I switched from doing my comedy show to being suddenly a keynote speaker,
Yeah.
I I went from being on stage with a partner to being alone, and not only trying to be funny. My speeches have a lot of humor in them, but they really deliver powerful content.
Yeah.
Um, but I had 90 minutes, and I had to fill all by myself on stage. And
Yeah.
yeah, the first speech was difficult because of the fact that it was it was my fear that I had to get over. Now I could go on stage, I could talk for hours and be just
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, yeah. But John, so nowadays, what we are going through a lot of um, s- uh, sensitive topics around the world nowadays about a lot of things. Okay, so my question with that statement of mine is, how far is too far?
How far is too
Let
far?
me let me
Is
explain. So
yeah.
let's say I want to talk about racism, or I want to
Mhm.
talk about handicapped, I want to talk about politics, I want to talk about, like many of those type of topics. I mean, how far is too far?
It all depends on who you're talking to, and I believe you can start with verbal contracts. But I like what Socrates said. Socrates said that when the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser,
Hmm.
right? And so if it's dropping down to a me saying bad things about you and your mother, then it's turned into you've just lost the fight because you've got nothing else to say but attack.
Yeah.
I love hearing people who will talk on the opposite side of any aisle from any topic there is.
Hmm.
One of the interviews I did recently, and I interviewed her, was a wonderful speaker named Sunny Matthews, and she's a diversity and inclusion speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And we got into some very deep conversations about diversity and inclusion and racism.
Mm.
And, here I am, a big bearded, bald white man, talking to this black woman about racism. And we had some very, of course, I'm not a racist in any way, shape, or form, but I was. And I said that very clearly. My father was a redneck racist and was raising me that way. And I broke out of it when I was in my teens. I actually chose a different path.
Mm.
And I confessed to her in that interview that actually happened. And
Mm.
by me bearing myself to her, it bridged the gap in the conversation.
Mm.
And so it really comes down to you can talk to anybody. I had a wonderful conversation when I was in a taxi cab riding from Mount Sinai back to Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt,
Mm.
and it was two Egyptian men,
Mm.
and they got into a conversation. Why do you support Israel? Why does America support Israel?
Mhm.
And I had a whole conversation about the Society of America and how the majority of Americans have no idea about the politics over there,
Yeah,
but they're more worried about what they're going to buy on Amazon.
that's right. That's right.
And so we don't even think about it. So whereas for you, it's right here and it's personal because it's every day you're living that.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
We're so far away. It's so an interesting thing. So you can get into some very interesting and powerful topics. But however, once you step over the line of getting personal and casting insults and stop talking constructively, then you've crossed the line.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many jokes that your mama jokes are,
Yeah.
those are offensive too at the same time. But then, depending how far is too far. I mean, that's my question, right? And I don't think there's any topic which is safe because every topic is not safe.
Right. Right.
So it all depends on how far do you go.
And it depends on where you are. Because I had a friend who was a street comedian in New York City,
Yeah,
and I won't cuss, but I'll give you the gist of what happened in this scenario.
sure.
Um, he said something in a comedy skit. He said something about the guy's mother, and the guy said, "My mother's dead." And the comedian, because he was a New York comedian, looked at the guy, knew that the guy was just messing with him.
Mm.
He says, "I know. I slept with her till she died." Only he didn't say slept with her,
Whoa.
right?
Yeah.
And the guy smiled and said, "All right," and laughed. But he knew his audience. Now, was that stepping over the line? Comedically, I would say yes.
Yeah.
But for that audience, no.
But if you take that joke to a different country, that I think they would take it offensively.
Oh,
So it
huge,
so it
huge.
all depends on where when you're doing the stage shows, you got to know who your audience and which audience you're going to do that. I mean, if you do in the business world, that's not going to fly, is it? So it all depends. It
Absolutely.
depends on
You
the
can't go
audience. Yeah.
like, for instance, if you go to Saudi Arabia to do a speech, and you go out to dinner and you get real relaxed and you're drinking your cup of coffee and you cross your legs,
Yeah.
whoever is on the bottom side of your foot that is on your knee
Yeah.
is offended.
That's right.
And so, that's an offense. That's an offense, right?
Yeah.
And so, in that situation, it's my job as the person who's coming there. I traveled one time with what I would call the classic ugly American.
Mm.
And we were in Germany and he didn't speak German and I didn't speak German. But the difference between the two of us was I could communicate with everybody I ran into,
Mm.
even though I couldn't speak their language.
Yeah.
Because communication is not just verbal,
Mm.
it's physical, it's eyes, it's the way you hold yourself. And he would start to talk to them. They wouldn't understand him. He would get louder,
Mm.
and then he would get disgusted and say, "Don't even talk to them," and he'd walk away.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I'm having a whole conversation over his shoulder about what a jerk he is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I don't have that experience. But everywhere I've been in the world, I've been able to communicate very clearly. But I also understood before I went there, don't go to Egypt. And one of the things that always makes me cringe is in Egypt is, you really shouldn't be wearing shorts,
That's right.
you know,
Yeah. That's right.
because it's offensive,
It's
right?
offensive,
And
right?
so I'm like, so I never wore shorts when I was in Egypt, right? But I was in a hotel in the Gezira Sheraton, and this woman walked in, and she was wearing a bikini,
That's right.
and I was like, this is the wrong country for that, and it's offensive,
Yeah, yeah.
And so to me, I realize that we all are different, but we can also celebrate our differences and respect our differences.
Hmm.
And if I'm in your home, I need to act like I'm in your home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, John, very insight. Even though that you are a motivational speaker and a comedian, we talked about real stuff and real topics, and I thank you for you bringing those type of topics and insight on my show, and I thank you for that.
Oh, I'm honored to be here. It's been a great time so far.
So, John, before I let you go, any last comedy words that you have, or any last words before I let you go?
Co- Comedy words. Well, I will tell you, if you're ever switching your career from being a comedy sword fighting comedian to becoming a corporate action hero, um, the first thing you need to do is stop wearing the tights. It took me 3 speeches before I stopped, and it just didn't go over well.
Yeah. Okay.
But on a achievement level, I would say this:
Yes.
make your present moment as successful as possible, because today's choices are tomorrow's outcomes.
Wow, that's some strong words, John. Thank you so much for all the work that you do and all the great work that you do, and bringing a little light into my show. And I'm kind of honored that you are on my show. Thank you again.
Oh, well, thank you. And before we go, I do want to give your audience a free gift.
Oh.
And when I say free, I mean free. Uh, it's going to be a downloadable workbook on the 5 Fs, so they
Mm,
can go through their own process.
mm,
And I say free, which means you go to my website and just download it. There's not even a place to put in an email address.
okay.
Today is about bringing value to the audience, not me taking anything.
Mm,
Another thing is, when you're on my website, there's nothing on that site that will sell you anything or collect any of your data.
mm. And what is that website you want to explain all to everyone there?
Corporateactionhero.com. And if you want to look at me socially, you can find all the links there.
Mm.
And also check out my daily vlog. Every day I put out a piece of motivation.
Yeah, I was reading some today. It was great stuff that you have there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you again for coming on my show, and I will start downloading that 5 Fs and start giving all 5 Fs to everybody.
Great, great. I guess you're probably gonna have to put it in your show notes because it's a really long link.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Thank you so much, John, for all the stuff that you do, and thanks for coming on my show.
Thank you. Have a great day.
So, guys, we spoke with John Davis, and we talked about, what did we talk about? We talked about motivational speaking. We talked about fear. We talked about comedy. We talked about positivity. We talked about the 5 Fs equals to M. So, guys, that's what it is. It's all about mindset of how you want to take the information